Greetings. Warm welcome to yet another episode of Me Too Personal Development Insights with Subila. Here we share insights on personal development because we are passionate about making you realize that you have yourself to meet, you have yourself to develop, and you have yourself to manifest in a world where you are told to discover and become anything you wish to become. Our emphasis at Me Too is that make sure you become yourself in a world where you get to meet so many people. Our reminder is do not forget to meet yourself, because in this life the greatest work all of us have is work on ourselves. In fact, there's a saying by Jim Rohn that goes like this, that work hard on your job, but work harder on yourself. That is what we keep reminding you in each and every episode of Insights with Subila, that you have yourself to work on, you have yourself to bless us with. Remember that in this life, you are the one who should announce who you are to all of us and to the rest of society, not the other way around. But you can only announce a self that you know, and you can only know yourself through a commitment to personal development. It all begins with personal development. Once you commit to personal development, this is going to raise your level of self-awareness. And the good news is that the more you know about yourself, the sharper the decisions you begin to make around your own life. And once you improve the quality of your own decisions, this ultimately improves the quality of your own life. And when the quality of your life improves, it has a ripple effect on whatever you associate yourself with. So the business you're running, the family you belong to, or the organization you're working for, even the nation that you belong to actually begins to benefit from a better version of yourself. So give us the best version of yourself, because you are a blessing to us. To take you through this episode, I am your host, Subila Kaunda. Today I will be teaching on the subject that I've titled Strategic Thinking for Effective Problem Solving. Strategic Thinking for Effective Problem Solving. And I want to focus on helping you understand how you can use your brain to solve some of the problems that come into your own life. Problems happen to all of us, but for some people, they've mastered the art of going about their problems and they have propelled their life to success. While an average person out there is intimidated, gets depressed, moves into the corner, covers themselves in a blanket anytime problems come into their life. But I want you to know that it doesn't matter who you are. It also doesn't matter where you are found. You can learn how to use this tool that you possess called the brain and engage in strategic thinking, and you learn how to effectively deal with the problems that come into your own life. Now, to begin this teaching, I want to share 3 particular sayings that I've encountered that have changed my life. They have transformed my life. Maybe because the time I bumped into each of these sayings, I was going through that particular issue in my own life. Now, the first saying is a statement that I heard from a man of God from Nigeria by the name of Bishop David Oyedepo. Now, David Oyedepo had this to say about thinking. He said, if you can think hard, even what you have is enough. If you can think hard, even what you have is enough. Now, this statement challenged me and it transformed me. I appreciate it till today because I bumped into this statement at a time when I almost concluded that in my own life, the reason why I wasn't getting things done in the most effective way was because I just didn't have enough. I thought I needed more resources at my disposal to be able to come out of certain challenges that I was encountering. Then I bumped into this statement which said, if you can think hard, even what you have is enough. The second statement that I bumped into that has changed my life, revolutionized the way I look at life and the way I look at challenges, is a statement that I heard from yet another Nigerian businessman by the name of Aliko Dangote. Now, in one of his interviews, he said this about problems. He said that life for him, life without problems, is very, very boring. That's what he said. And this statement blew my mind because I bumped into it at a time when I felt I was having too many problems. I felt unfortunate. I felt I didn't deserve to go through some of the problems I was going through. And then I come across a man who's a billionaire making that statement that for him, he considers a problem-free life to be a very boring life. And for a believer like me, I have grown up believing that life is about praying all my problems out, praying them away. I want a problem-free life, a challenge-free life. And then I meet this man through his interview who says for him, he doesn't necessarily want problems to just be eliminated from his life because his life will become boring. In other words, this man has developed a different attitude towards problems. And because of that, he sees them differently, and that propels him to tackle them, and ultimately tackling them results in tremendous success. And the third statement that blew my mind, and up to now it has just transformed the way I look at life, is a statement which happens to be a title of a book. Now, I must mention that I bumped into this statement at a time when I was trying to figure out how can I make it in life? How can I become wealthy, become rich, become successful? You know, there's a time you want to figure out what it takes. What do I need to do? What should I engage myself into for me to become successful? And I bump into this title of a book. Before I even read the book, the title just blew me away. And the title of the book says, Think and Grow Rich. Now, this title just blew my mind. I looked at it, I said, think and grow rich. I began to ask questions. You mean all I need to do is just to think? If I can think, it can help me become financially successful? That's the title, Think and Grow Rich. And so these three statements have just changed the way I approach my brain and the use of my brain and strategic thinking. And that's why I want to share with you strategic thinking for effective personal development and effective problem solving. With those statements, I came to realize that growing up as a believer, there are certain dimensions that I have been using to recognize the power and the might of God. For example, my own experience, I love to look at what God has created. I like to imagine His creation. And just by imagining or observing His creation, I get amazed. It is one way in which I see the power of God at work. Personally, I don't know about you, but every time I just imagine how a human being like you, develops from a liquid sperm that enters a woman and fertilizes an egg, and from there, everything begins to form, the body, the structure, the bones. That process, I'll never get used to it. I know we have seen it so many times that we've become familiar, but I'll never be familiar with the process through which a human being like yourself goes through to just develop and reach the stage where you are, that you can even listen to me today. Such an amazing process. When I look at what God has created, it just displays to me His power. There are times I just love to watch the universe and how all the planets rotate around the sun, and how we've never had on any single day heard of an accident that the two planets have clashed, or this one today was not spinning, or the speed today was slow. Nothing. From the time I was born, the earth has always been taking 365 days to revolve around the sun. And when I look at the order of that system, wow, I'm amazed. Those things reveal to me just how powerful God is. But when I encountered these three statements that I just shared with you, I realized there's another dimension to God's power that I've not paid attention to. Of course, I have been paying attention to the power of God revealed by the things He has created. I have been paying attention to the power of God as revealed by what He continues to do in the lives of people, because that's the other channel through which I just begin to appreciate the power and might of God. When I look at how God is transforming other people's lives, I'm amazed that somebody was sick and broken and God has healed and restored their life. To me, that's a life-changing testimony that somebody was down and God has lifted them up. We see these things, we hear these testimonies. I am part of the people who are amazed by these amazing testimonies. They reveal to me how powerful God is. But to end at seeing the power of God through His creation and seeing the power of God through what He continues to do for His children is not all there is to God's dimensions. There's another dimension that I personally realized I didn't pay attention to, and it only got to be revealed when I encountered the 3 statements that I shared with you. And this dimension is seeing the power of God through what He has already given me. In other words, I didn't know I possessed so much powerful tools. I didn't know I was in possession of life-changing equipment right in me. I never paid attention to it until the 3 statements that I shared with you challenged me. And here is something I realized about life. It is good to be in possession of powerful tools, but at the same time, it is dangerous. When you are in possession of something powerful and you are knowledgeable about it, it will work to your advantage. But being in possession of something powerful and you are ignorant, it will work to your disadvantage. It can even lead to your destruction. Haven't you noticed, for example, that the same tools that people use to propel their life to success, for others, the same tools are working to their destruction? Let me give an example. Do you know how powerful sexuality is, for example? It is such a powerful blessing for us as human beings and all the other animals, because through sexuality, man is able to propagate, increase population and grow. But guess what? Sexuality happens to be one of the leading causes of destruction for people. A powerful tool can become dangerous. Let me even give another example of the same thing we are discussing, which is the brain. The brain is part of the tools that people who are succeeding in life are using because they possess an understanding of how to use it. But the brain is also the reason why many people are finding themselves in addictions. In other words, when you're in possession of something powerful, the right way to say thank you is not just by saying thank you, but the right way to say thank you is by learning how to use them. Because if I gifted you with a car, yes, I'll appreciate when you tell me thank you, but the biggest thank you will tell me is when I see you possessing the right knowledge of how to take care of this car and how to operate it. If I see you managing it well, I will know you are grateful. But if I see you mismanaging the car that I gifted you with, even though you said 100 thank yous with your mouth, how you are taking care of it will reveal to me whether truly you were grateful. In other words, the point I'm trying to make is when you realize what you are in possession of, how powerful the tools God has given you, gifted you with, like your brain. Saying thank you by word of mouth is good, but the greatest thank you you can say to your Creator over your brain is to learn how to use it. So we are teaching you here how to engage your brain, how to use it to solve problems, because God wants you to realize that there are problems that He will solve for you without your involvement. And I can tell you that there are problems that in your life God is able to sort out with His own mighty hand without your involvement. But I also want to tell you that there are some that He will never solve for you because He wants you, He has invited you to come and reason with Him. In Isaiah 1 verse 18, He says, "Come, on this one, let us reason together." So I guess my focus today will be how to solve those problems that even God Himself expects you to reason out a solution. So to go into this subject, I want to share with you the major steps to take for you to engage your brain in solving problems that you will encounter in this life. Now, to begin with, do you go through problems? Do you have challenges? Do you experience temptations? Do you experience obstacles in your own life? Before you answer that question, allow me to define what a problem is from a strategic thinking point of view. Now, According to strategic thinking, I love the definition they give on what a problem really is. And here is what we define a problem is a problem according to strategic thinking. A problem is simply any discrepancy between your existing and your desired state of affairs. That's a problem. Any discrepancy between your existing and your desired state of affairs, according to strategic thinking, that qualifies to be called a problem. In other words, anytime you are not where you wish to be, anytime where you are not where you desire to be, if there's any area in your life where you believe you are not where you want it to be, that which is causing that discrepancy qualifies to be called a problem. In other words, if your health is not ticking, that which is making your health not to tick qualifies to be a problem. If your finances are not ticking, that which is making your finances not to tick qualifies to be a problem. If your relationships or your marriage is not ticking according to your desire, that which is creating that difference or discrepancy qualifies to be a problem in your relationship. So, having defined the problem as a discrepancy between your desired and your existing state of affairs, then I ask the question again, do you have problems? Of course, all of us do have problems, because when you meet any person, they will tell you they are not where they wish to be, they are not where they desire to be. But just how to solve those problems is a puzzle for many people. And I want you to know that truly knowing how to solve problems is not easy. You need training. So what are the steps that you need to engage your brain into in order to effectively deal with problems through the process we are calling strategic thinking? Step number 1 is to realize the truth. Realize the truth. That is step number 1. Now, what is the truth? The truth is, in this life, and I want you to take it from me, in this life, you will never experience any challenge, any problem, or any obstacle, or any temptation that has not been weighed. At least the good news, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, is that any challenge that hits you, that reaches your life, has been weighed by your Creator. And when He weighs the challenge, He knows that He has weighed you also, and you are capable of dealing with that particular obstacle, that particular temptation, that particular problem. That realization propels you into a state where you realize you actually have what it takes to deal with that particular challenge. The fact that it reached you, I want you to know that it was weighed. And once you know that the problems I'm going through were weighed and my Creator has allowed them to reach me, He knows what He has put in me. I have what it takes to deal with it. So step number 1 is that realization of the truth. And the truth is, any challenge you will ever encounter in this life has been weighed. And you have been weighed. And if it can reach you, you have what it takes to deal with it. The second step into using your brain to solve the challenge is this. Change how you see the problem. At least you can change the perception. You may not change the situation, but you can change the perception. Changing the perception means you can change how you see it. Now, how do you change the way you see a problem you're going through? Here is the secret. There is something that happens to all of us as human beings. It's what I call the natural tendency. All of us, including myself, when we are going through a difficult time, a challenge, encountering an obstacle, or a problem, and the natural question that pops up in all of us is the question, why me? Now, I want you to know that naturally, all of us are inclined to have that question pop up anytime we're going through a difficult situation, including yourself. The question that pops up is, why me? But I've taken time to study that question, and here is what I want to share with you. That question, why me? At a time you're going through a difficult moment, asking that question, why me, has more negative effect than the challenge itself that you're going through. I want you to know that the question, why me, causes more distraction on you than even the situation that you're going through. Why? Because the question why me makes you question why others are not going through that. The question why me automatically makes you compare yourself to others. The question why me makes you doubt God's love for your life. The question why me makes you doubt other people's love for your own life. The question why me and its effect are very, very destructive. They destroy you more than even the challenge itself that you're going through. So here is the secret that I want to share with you. When you are encountering a challenge, a problem, an obstacle, instead of asking why me, ask why not me. The moment you add that word not to the question, it changes everything. It changes the perception. When you ask why not me, all of a sudden, something in you happens. You realize maybe I was meant for this. Maybe other people cannot handle this, but I can handle. The question why not me makes you realize that maybe I have what it takes to come out of this challenge and overcome. Why not me makes you focus on what you have to offer in order to go through the challenge that you are going through. And here's what I want to share with you about your brain, because we're discussing the brain in this episode. The way God designed your brain, He designed it in a unique way. All of us, the brains that we have, will always interpret the situation we are going through in two models. Your brain will always reduce what you are going through. Anytime the signal reaches your brain about what you are experiencing, the brain will reduce it to two things. It's either it will consider it to be a threat or it will consider it to be a reward. Now, once your brain interprets what you're going through as a threat, the hypothalamus, which is the part of your brain that commands the pituitary gland to release the chemicals called hormones, is going to release stress hormones. And stress hormones will propel your body just for two things, either fight or flight. Why? Your brain is interpreting what you're going through as a threat. But on the other hand, the same situation, you can change how your brain interprets it. It can interpret it as a reward. Now, the moment your brain interprets the situation as a reward, the hypothalamus will command the pituitary gland to release different kind of hormones, a different set of hormones that we call the feel-good hormones. So here's what you do. Once you change the question from why me, why am I going through this, to now why not me? Maybe I should be the one to go through this. Maybe this thing is presenting an opportunity for me to change my life. Why me? Why have I lost my job? Why not me? Why should others lose their job but not me? And whatever the situation you're going through, if you ask why not me, now the brain will change how it interprets that situation. It will consider that situation to be a reward. And guess what? The feel-good hormones will be released by your brain. And there is nothing more powerful in this life than for you to begin to feel good about a situation that otherwise should have caused you to worry. All of a sudden, you now begin to feel good that you lost your job. All of a sudden, you now begin to feel good that your business is going through that terrible moment where they're recording low sales. If you can feel good about a bad situation that otherwise should have gotten you worried, that in itself is 50% having the problem solved. Because if you can feel good about it, it changes how you approach it. So don't ask why me. Ask why not me. And when you do that, the brain will release, instead of stress hormones, it will release feel-good hormones. And there is power in feeling good about the problem you are experiencing. So step number 2 was change how you see the problem. You don't have power to change the issue, the situation, but you have power to change how you see it, how you perceive it. We move to step number 3. Once you change how you perceive it, now face the problem. Step number 3 is face the problem. Use your brain to face the problem. That statement sounds simple, but it is not. Because I tell you this, there are very few people who have the courage to face their problems. Many of us are swimming not necessarily in the problems we are going through, but in the symptoms or manifestations. And so when I say face the problems, what I'm implying is move past the symptom stage. Move past the symptom stage and face what the real problem is. And I want to advise you that when the step comes for you to face the problem, do it with a piece of paper and a pen, because when you face it, I want you to be describing what you will be finding. Now, what do we mean by facing the problem? Move past the symptoms. Because when I ask people, what problem are you having? I'm having a headache. And I tell you, that headache is not necessarily the problem. However, it is a manifestation that there is something wrong in your body. What problem are you experiencing? No, the business is experiencing low sales. Low sales is not a problem. Low sales is a manifestation of the problem. What problem? You ask another one. What problem are you experiencing? No, I'm going through divorce. Divorce is not a problem. That's why maybe when they brought the issue of divorce to Jesus, he ignored to even comment about divorce. He commented about what matters the most, because the truth of the matter is that there are couples that have divorced over issues that other couples went through also. Maybe even worse, but they didn't divorce. So divorce is not a problem, but divorce is a manifestation of the problem. In other words, don't swim. Don't allow yourself to just end at being intimidated by the symptoms, because all of a sudden you allow your mind to be crowded by the symptoms of the problem, and they don't allow you to even face the problem itself. Guess what? If you can deal with the problem, the symptoms disappear immediately. So face the problem and begin to write. Could it be lack of proper marketing? You start writing down the problems that you are anticipating. You begin to consider multiple perspectives. If it's a relationship issue, could it be that poor communication, bad behavior? And you're writing because you're now trying to face the problem. You move past the symptom stage. You stop focusing on the manifestations of the problem and tackle the problem itself. And the next step to use your mind or your brain to solve the problems you experience in life is, once you face the problem, describe it as it is. There is power in clarity. Be able to clarify the problem. If, for example, you discover that, okay, the symptom was low sales, but to have tackled the problem, I've faced it, and I've found that the problem is our prices are too high. We sell chicken and chips at ABC store, but the prices comparing to the market prices were too high. Now you discover that that is the problem. High price. That's what's leading to low sales. So low sales was not a problem. Now you've been able to discover the problem was high prices. Now describe it as it is, because when you describe the problem as it is, you strip it naked. You expose it. It loses its power. There is power in describing the problem as it is. You move past the symptom stage and describe it. This is what is causing this. You get that experience that, aha, finally, I got you. You are the reason why the business is doing this. You are the reason why my relationship is working like this. You are the reason why my finances are in a mess. I've found the problem. This is the problem. Describe it. That is the next step. And the next step is, once you describe the problem, apply the solutions that you write or the solutions that you develop. Begin to suggest various solutions to that. For example, I'll give an example. You discover the symptom was low sales. When you face the problem, you realize your prices were too high. Now begin to think about how best to come out of that problem. How do we lower our prices? You go again and discover maybe our suppliers are giving us things at a high price. Maybe we can introduce what we call backward integration. That is strategic thinking. It is what companies use. The people in the corporate world, they sit down to strategize through what we call strategic thinking. Maybe we can do backward integration. If we are getting this thing at a very high price from our suppliers, how about if we introduced our own chicken rearing? Let's begin to keep our own chickens. Maybe if we begin to buy the feed and everything, the cost of producing one chicken will be lower. And when we do that, this can influence the ultimate price at which we sell our chicken and chips. Now, by offering all those alternatives, bringing those alternatives to the table, you are now developing the possible solutions to your problem. And once you do this, begin to apply. Okay? Wisdom demands that when you have the knowledge, begin to apply. And the final step in dealing with your problems is ask for wisdom. Wisdom is simply application of knowledge. James 1 verse 5 says, "Is any of you lacking wisdom? Let them ask from God who generously gives. So asking for wisdom, meaning being in possession of that ability to apply what you need to do, is a powerful step in solving your problems. The final point I also want to add is be in the habit of inviting other brains also. There is power in teamwork. Every step I mentioned here, you can do it as an individual, but also doing it as a team is even more powerful because we differ in one area as human beings in the way we process information. So other people may process it differently from you, and when you combine the brains, the problem just has to be dealt with, and the solution you find ultimately will end up rewarding you, rewarding your organization, rewarding your relationship, depending on the problem that you encountered. This is what I had to share with you today. How to engage strategic thinking in solving the problems that you experience. Don't just be quick to allow the problem to weigh you down and push you into depression. You possess something powerful, a tool called your brain. And of course, with the brain power of other people, you can come up with a team and follow this step-by-step strategy that I've revealed. And indeed, you will be able to come out of that particular challenge. Remember, problems also are the dress code for the opportunity, so don't be quick to cry about them, but be quick to find out what is hiding in that problem because it came to promote you. Thank you so much for following this episode. I'll see you next time, even as we continue to discuss personal development. God bless you. Shalom, shalom.